The following audit contains approximately 35 minutes of unfiltered thought and a statistically significant amount of ums and ahs. Management apologises for the lack of brevity. So, hello, good afternoon, friends. I wanted to take a few minutes today to have a talk about some of my influences and some of my legacy content, let's call it that, and explaining my pivot, if pivot is the right word to use, because in some ways it's actually kind of a distillation. So after many years, I mean, my YouTube account itself is ancient. It's actually one of the original YouTube accounts. And YouTube itself has gone through many different eras where, different trends have sort of come and gone. And other than an overall direction from super raw, underproduced, slice of lifestyle content, it's become more and more curated toward highly performative stuff, super polished stuff. And as more and more people get in on the game, if you like, of media creation, now that the tools are just so much more ubiquitous in your average household, and everyone's got a smartphone. It's not a difficult thing to get a mic with some sort of reasonable quality and all these sorts of things. DSLR cameras are cheaper, and even webcams are pretty good these days. That being said, a lot of modern content specifically uses high grade prestige assets. For example, using clips from a film for a film review and that sort of thing. So just to have a chat about some of the people who've influenced me over the years, and there are too many to mention, but over the more recent years, my favourite channels, not in any specific order, okay? To start with, let's talk about Brewis, also known as Hbomberguy. He does a few different things, but he concentrates on long form critiques, deep deconstruction and analysis of video game ideas, movie ideas, and even some cultural ideas as well. He has a very specific affectation on his content that he remains an approachable kind of personality, whilst being able to convey a real love of the content that he's talking about. Content. That's such a 2026 word, isn't it? I mean, I guess people have been talking about it for a few years now, but before we had movies, games, songs, videos. Now it's all content. Not suggesting that there's necessarily been a homogenization of culture, but the certain familiar memes, and I'm talking about memes in the Dawkinsian sense right now, not internet memes as such, but memes float through to the top, if you like. It's the ideas that are common to all of us that unite us in a sense. And if we go to browse our YouTube feed, for example, not only is that feed informed by the specific choices we've made as individuals, but it's also informed by a collective acknowledgement that, certain items are of a high quality or are just at least popular. Some certain things that float to the top are things that people engage with a lot via liking and commenting, that sorts of things, and disliking as well. some of the most popular content, meaning like the most engaged with content, is actually the kind of cultural, controversial ideas where steering away from a political heavy conversation, there's a few different divides where, I mean, for example, you've got movie or TV series comes out, you've got a particular group saying, this is woke ideas, and then you've got another particular group saying no. So, you have this tension between these two ideas, and this rises as cultural clashing in the form of video engagement. So that's one particular metric that informs the kinds of videos that we're all going to see show up in our feeds, whether or not the arguments associated with these ideas are interesting to us or not. Basically, when certain videos hit like a critical mass of engagement, what people call the YouTube algorithm, which frankly is perhaps a bit of a gauche way of thinking about how YouTube actually chooses to serve its content to people one way or the other, because it's not just an algorithm, it's a suite of highly sophisticated algorithms. And and I'm sure most people are aware of this, and that's what they mean when they say the YouTube algorithm. They're kind of referring to the entire YouTube backend that informs popularity choices and this kind of thing. So, just a few more of my influences. Just moving on from Harris. So my next huge influence is Lindsay Ellis. In the early days, she had the channel title Nostalgia Chick. And when I say she is the face, okay? And she is the voice, and she is clearly heavily involved with the writing and the research. But I'm to understand, and I'm sure this is quite true of Harris as well, that by this point in time in their YouTube career, let's call it that, or their film analysis career or journey, whatever you want to call it, there's not just one person involved, This is when someone can afford. It's not just about affording either. It's about intention, and the sum content of what a group can produce is it's going to be better than what one person can produce alone. Many hands make light work is the thing. Now, I don't know exactly how many people are involved in Lindsay's videos. It could just be the two, Lindsay and her best friend, and then maybe she gets an editor as well. I don't know. But yes, Lindsay's channel, incredible analysis. She brings the receipts, so as to say, using various different psychoanalyses, using philosophical analysis, comparing works with other works that carry similar threads, whether they're similar in idea, they're similar because they're created by the same people, or they're similar because of where they sit in pop culture. Lindsay's got a fantastic channel, and of course, I recommend to anybody to go and take a look at that. The next channel I'll talk about is Dan Olson's Folding Ideas. So Dan is, in a certain sense, now I'm not saying he's better than anyone else, but I consider him to be the gold standard of what a YouTube analytical commentary channel should be. His production design is top-notch. His creativity is boundless. And I'm to understand that the majority of the work done, if not all of the work done, is his. He takes care to point out credit where there have been other contributions, and some of his videos have involved a few people in the making of. But I very much am under the impression that the takes we're seeing, this is him. This is about his critical eye and how he's looking at things. Now, his topics are far-reaching. He does film analysis, which is like the commonality perhaps between sort of all of these channels is not just films but games. Anything that has like a strong narrative analysis is like the common entry point of most of my influences. So Dan talks not just about this kind of content, but broad cultural ideas, economic ideas. One particular video of his, Line Goes Up, an incredible, incisive video that just looks at sort of all aspects. All might not be the right word, but it looks at a vast array of aspects of the subject that he's diving into, and it's incredible. I mean, even when the premise, some of his videos, like one in particular, is called I think it's Decentraland. The future is a dead mole. The title might just be The Future is a Dead Mole, and he's talking about like you guys might have heard of Second Life. Decentraland is a similar kind of thing, essentially a crypto-backed quasi-virtual world which is designed for consumers to interact with corporate bodies in a meta layer that wants to be treated as a reified space. But look, hey, I'm not doing the deconstruction here. I'm just going to say that you really need to check out Dan Olson's work. Certainly, The Future is a Dead Mole, incredibly fascinating. Even though the subject itself is super dry. It's like, and the point is kind of about how dry it is, but these videos are endlessly engaging. And all of the people I've spoken on the list so far, I've watched and rewatched their entire catalogue, in some cases dozens of times. The videos are that good and have that much influence on the way I engage with media content. Next is Big Joel. So Big Joel, although I highly doubt he's ever heard of me or any of the guys on the list. Excuse me. I've been around for a very long time in the YouTube landscape, but most likely I've escaped the notice of all of these people, and that's totally fine. YouTube as social media is a different experience than, say, Facebook as social media. It's a different beast altogether. But so Big Joel, even though we've never directly interacted, I feel something of a kinship, or that we're some kind of kindred spirits born into a specific kind of media landscape that we engage with in similar ways, with the exception, of course, of the kinds of content delivery. Because yes, I'm not really making Big Joel style videos, and I never really have made Big Joel style videos. I mean, there are some videos I've made where you might be able to draw some parallels, but Big Joel is just, let's just say, I think he seems like a great guy with some very insightful commentary on cultural issues through the lens of film and TV analysis. There are other things he looks at too, but they have the same thread in common, the same deconstructive lens that we're looking at these things with. Big Joel, check him out. Fantastic channel. And the last of my influences I'm going to talk about right now is Joseph Anderson. Joseph Anderson is perhaps the apex of video game deconstruction. And I feel that he's done more for the space than just about any other video game reviewer or commentator that I can think of. There are lots of great review channels, but in terms of the deep analysis that Joseph does, everything from presentation to mechanical systems to psychological input, philosophical output, states of the game having different impacts based on the choices that you've made, the way these things are a commentary on all of the games that come before it, how it acts as paratext to the game, but also paratext to other games that you might never have imagined are connected. Joseph Anderson is the first among many video game deconstructors that I enjoy. Yes, so I mean, Joseph Anderson, check him out. Fantastic channel. So yeah, I have a lot of influences. I barely scratched the surface, but these are a selection, if you like, of the kinds of people that I'd like to emulate in terms of the way I engage with content, and people that perhaps grew up in a similar era to me with a similar, not necessarily a similar view on the world, although that's quite probably true too, but a similar perspective from which to engage with the specific global media landscape. So yes, check out all those guys. Hbomberguy, Lindsay, Ellis, Dan Olson, Folding Ideas, Big Joel, and Joseph Anderson. Now, talking a little bit about my legacy content. That's what I'm going to call it. As I said, I've been a YouTube creator for a very long time. I started my account in 2007, and to begin with, I was just a watcher. I'd comment on videos. I'd sometimes email the creators of videos, and we'd have discussions. And I've had long discussions with many of YouTube's early creators, some who are still around now. Because YouTube then was a different kind of space that it is now. Where like the number one most subscribed of all time had like 8,000 or 9,000 subscribers kind of thing. This is like the era of YouTube that I came from, or that I was birthed in, if you like. And I had my own moment in the light. In December 2007, I was invited by YouTube to become a guest editor. So essentially for a month, I had the front page, which was essentially curated with my selection of videos for people to watch. The guest editor program is something that is since kind of obsolete. They only sort of ran it for a year or two, and I think there only ended up being half a dozen guest editors. Because, frankly, the content distribution model completely changed. You see, originally there was just one YouTube homepage. Okay, and a featured video on the YouTube homepage meant that everyone in the world would see that when they went to that homepage. That quickly broke off into regional homepages. So you could think of the USA YouTube homepage as the main or default homepage, but then Australia, UK, I'm not sure how many different countries, but perhaps every country where they show YouTube. But yes, YouTube broke away into regional centres. So there was an Australian YouTube homepage. Now, it just so happened that my time as a guest editor, December 2007, was right on that cusp. So I actually I actually got to curate the US and the Australian YouTube homepages. It was the same curation. I just basically submitted my choice of videos, and they put them on both those pages. So that was, excuse me, that was a moment in my past. Now, some of those videos that I made are still here on the page. In point of fact, the actual guest editor video, which was, if you like, the curation justification video, it still exists. It still exists. It's still on the page. And my many different eras of engaging with YouTube and eras when I really didn't engage with YouTube, they're kind of all essentially preserved. Now, a lot of videos I've taken down just because they're that bad. And frankly, there's probably a lot of videos that are still that bad that they should be taken down, videos I've made. But at some point I decided to just sort of leave the legacy content there as some kind of Easter egg for, you know, people who've come along recently. You know, they might like the content that I'm making now, which is, this is the 3-minute essay format that I've been doing to put in the shorts feed. And I'll put a pin in that. I'll expand more on that later. But so somebody might come along to my channel, see this well-established 20-year-old channel with, you know, let's say a month worth of polished new content, and then decreasing in fidelity over the years, various different eras of content over this long, essentially 20-year tenure that I've had on YouTube. You know, I had a period where I was focused on video game reviews, and I've made it with just like a headset microphone and a webcam pointed at the screen, and you know, sort of everything in between that and what you see today. I've got videos where I just literally just talk at the camera for a few minutes about one thing or another, or I combine a talk with the camera with a guitar performance. You know, this is my legacy content, and you, the viewer who has found this video, might be interested in knowing that that's the case. Not implying that you'd be interested in the actual content. Because, yeah, no, I mean, the world has moved on from the kind of content that I've produced over the years in different eras. The world has moved on. YouTube certainly has moved on. So, yeah, that talking about some of those different eras, you know, I had an era where I focused on doing some Metallica covers, you know, because I love the guitar, I love Metallica and stuff like that, and got an era where I focused on, I used to run a podcast a few years ago, not for a global audience, though people globally are welcome to view it, but specifically concentrated on a local Tasmanian audience, featuring local Tasmanian musicians. Those videos are in a playlist on my channel, but they are served by the channel Stormcrow Framework, which is the channel that my then business partner operates. His channel's great, by the way. Check that out, Stormcrow Framework. He's a Nepalese film creator, and he has, you know, a wide variety of guests doing various different things. Some of it's podcast content, like the stuff that we did together. Some of it's pure musical performance. Some of it's poetry readings. There's a lot of different stuff over at Stormcrow Framework. So moving on from the legacy content and my new pivot, if you like, to high-octane espresso shot style 3-minute essays. So the reason I've chosen to do this, so the YouTube Shorts feed at the moment is probably one of the most successful engines of discovery. It's a place where people will just be served random videos that come up. Some of them will be a 10-second prank. The majority of the Shorts videos range between, perhaps 15 seconds and a minute. That's the majority of those videos. And there's really no common thread there. It's just videos from every kind of place, though it would be somewhat, over a longer period, it'd be somewhat informed by the kinds of video choices that someone makes, when they're looking at the longer form, classic widescreen format videos. But yeah, so they just get fed straight into a general audience. So, I mean, there's quite clearly a friction between the kind of fast junk food style, oh, look, there's a hot girl, oh, look, there's a sick comedy prank, oh, look, there's a funny skit, oh, this guy's talking about a strange hole in Russia for 20 seconds. So there could be all sorts of things there, but between the friction of that fast food content and the idea that someone might sit still on a short for 3 minutes to listen to, some kind of analytical take, like a deep dive on a subject. I mean, or should we call it a shallow dive? Because it's hard to get super deep when you've only got 3 minutes to talk about. But that's the specific niche I've decided to explore. Because, so for example, like myself, I treat myself as my target audience, meaning that I make content that I would enjoy if someone made it, in the belief that there are some other people out there like me who like some of the same things, have a similar fascination and curiosity with the world, have a similar appreciation for intellectual takes on popular subjects. This is the idea that I make content that I would like myself if someone else was making it. And I believe that there is this audience out there, people that generally like to sit down and watch long 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 6 hour long form analytical deconstructions on videos and games. But they're currently not in a position where they can spend that much time. Hey, they might just be waiting for the kettle to boil so they can make their coffee before they run out the door. They may be on their lunch break at work, trying to avoid eye contact with a strange person, so they've got something to look at. They might be sitting in the Department for Motor Vehicles, waiting for their ticket to come up. This person still loves the kind of content they love, but they don't have the time to watch a 3-hour video always. So, like some kind of Trojan horse, if you think, I'll try to slip into this high-speed shorts feed and asking people just to take a breath just for a moment to appreciate, 3 minutes of dense analytical commentary. So yes, there's a clear friction between the delivery mechanism and what I'm delivering. So there are just going to be a lot of people in the general audience who see this and go, and as soon as they hear my voiceover start, they're going to go, nah, and swipe away. And that's absolutely fine. You can't make something that everyone loves and it still be of incredible worth, for people that want something deep dive. Like the kinds of videos that have absolutely universal appeal. There are creators out there making, I suppose, that kind of thing. If there's any such thing as absolute universal appeal, there's certainly users who are making videos with very, very broad appeal. And hey, that's their lane, and that's not the lane I'm in. I'm specifically looking for people like myself. Okay, so what is myself? What kind of viewer of YouTube am I? Well, other than the influences that I listed, the kinds of channels and some of the personalities that I appreciate, I'm the kind of person who doesn't often subscribe to another channel. I'm the kind of person who doesn't often put a like on a video, even if I like the video. This is a caricature we could refer to as the austere lurker. Okay, somebody that just observes the content as it's coming in and specifically loves austere presentation models. There's a kind of YouTuber who's like, hey, like and subscribe and check out my Patreon and watch me on Twitch, and here's all these different ways that you can keep the hype going. And then, this is a specific kind of delivery model. My delivery model is kind of the antithesis of that. Because as a viewer, I don't like to be told to subscribe or to like. I don't like to be told that. I know where the buttons are. I know what they do. And if I want to click those, I will. I don't need to be told. And likewise, I believe the audience that would appreciate my content, they don't need to be told that either. So now, I guess I'll talk about my my content inversion. So a lot of the analytical videos, of course, that I love, these are long form. And any time that one of these channels puts a short up, although I'll say most of the channels that I like don't really do shorts. That has a lot to do with the fact that they're already kind of well-established channels, over many years, and they really don't have the need for that. But talking about analytical channels that are sort of starting up now, they're following a similar protocol in that, okay, here's my, let's say, 20 minutes to 1 hour long analytical take, and here's a selection of shorts that are clips from that that may direct people back to the longer analysis. And that's the prevailing ideology behind that kind of content production model. I have an inversion of that, if you like, where I'm focused on creating these, as I said, these high-octane espresso shots of intellectual analysis. And my longer form content, like what I'm doing now, is really a space for more informal conversation, where I can perhaps talk about stuff that's happened in my week, or in this case, I'm talking about my media pivot, if you like. And this is what I'm going to try for a little while, so that the people who eventually find these videos are the ones who, want to kind of break past the parasocial layer of YouTube and have a more direct interaction with, the person behind the creation of these videos. So if you've actually reached this far, then my theory was correct in that you are a patient person. You are an austere lurker. And frankly, I'm thrilled that people like you have found my videos. So thank you very much. And I guess I'll see you next time.